Being 6:30, call this meeting of the Manchester by the Sea Select Board to order. Jeff.
Here.
Brian.
Here.
Kathy. Here. Ann is here and John.
Here.
This meeting is being recorded. The first item is public comments on non-agenda items. Are there comments on non-agenda items? Mr. Starkey.
Yes,
Name and address, please.
Jim Starkey, 13 Tux Point Road. I would like to speak briefly to the legalities of the 10 new Manchester Marine mooring permits that were discussed at your last meeting. The legalities are very, very clear. Manchester does not own the harbor or the harbor bottom. The state does not own the harbor or the harbor bottom. Harbor and the harbor bottom cannot be owned. They are held in trust by the state under the doctrine of public trust. There are two parts of the state laws and regulations that come into play. One of them is Chapter 91, which covers waterways. Chapter 91 provides that if the municipality has a harbor master, the harbor master has to assign moorings. The second is 310 CMR 9.7, which is the DEP regulations, and 9.07 covers permits. And there are two things that are very clear. One is that the harbor master is required to assign moorings off of a written procedure. And the second is the written procedure has to be fair and equitable. We have a written procedure, which is the harbor waterway regulations, and it is fair and equitable. The 10 Manchester Marine moorings were not assigned by any procedure in that document. Period. Those moorings are permits are null and void. They have no legal status at all. Because the state gives the authority to the harbor master and not to the select board, you can't change it, you can't bless it. There are basically two things that you can do. One is you can revise the waterway regulations to give the harbor master carte blanche to give moorings to boatyards. But fat chance trying to make that appear to be fair and equitable when there are 430 people on the wait list and 60 people on the change list, each of whom paid $20 a year to stay there, and some of the people have been there for 20 years. The other thing that you can do, and it's what I strongly suggest you do at your next meeting, is to direct the town administration to strike those mooring permits from the mooring list and follow the rules in our waterway, which says that available mooring spots are assigned to people on the change list. When they vacate a mooring, that mooring is assigned to somebody from the wait list. It is very clear. There's no wiggle room here. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Sarah Pierce.
Hi, thank you. Yes, Sarah Pierce. There's been quite a bit of comments on social media about our town administrator, who I know, Greg, you're on this meeting, but I'm just curious how you got a boat mooring in 2015 when there's been a waiting list that people have been on for 20 years.
I think that's a comment we're not going to respond to it.
I can provide an answer to you later, Sarah, offline.
Okay, I just wondered, I didn't know, I thought this would be the appropriate place to ask that since you were there, so I apologize if it's not.
It's fine to make a comment, but we don't get into a dialogue.
Okay, thank you very much.
And we have a public comment from the harbor master.
Yes, I would say that anyone who had any questions about a mooring assignment could certainly come and ask me, since I'm the one who assigned it. Happy to answer anybody and everybody's questions. I'm available in the office. You can come and see how the process works. So please come on down.
Thank you very much. Is there any other public comment? Okay, there is no, chairman's report today. So our next item is to go to look at the action items and suggest future action items. Kathy, you're usually,
On top of this stuff, right? Um, I do think at a prior meeting, we had asked for an audit of the mooring situation, so we should get some facts. And I was just wondering if we had any, oh, there it is, it's right there. There was no date attached to it. Do we have any more information on when we can get
I'll be
that?
quotes back this week,
Excellent, okay,
so I'm hoping to have it on the agenda for next time,
okay, great. So maybe we can just update the date on that. That was, what date did you say?
so the 22nd.
22nd, okay.
Okay.
Can we get an update on the flagpole situation at some point?
Yes. I need to follow with DPW. I actually thought it would be up by now.
Yeah.
So,
It's up, isn't
Not as of Friday. I don't know what they did
it?
today.
What was I been staring at the last 3 days?
Okay,
It's definitely up.
I was
I
staring at
should look up my
it.
window.
Okay, didn't see it. I don't remember. No, I wasn't around Friday. I guess it was Thursday I was right.
on
did
the
that grow right by? Never saw.
Yeah, me
on
too.
the flagpole, do we have a spare, American flag that we can, or can we get an American flag,
Yes,
suitable
yeah.
size? I happen to have found a Manchester flag. It's small, but it's in my front entryway right now. And I will bring it over. I think we have a larger one somewhere in town hall. Because
you do.
the flag used to be there,
Oh, right, yeah.
but one in hand. We'll figure out where the other one is when we try to put this one away.
Okay.
Okay, I'll bring that over tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I have,
Sarah, you might mute yourself. You've got a lovely giggle.
Oh, sorry, that's a cough.
Oh, okay, well, then it wasn't so lovely.
I have a question that the Affordable Housing Trust is going to, they were scheduled, I think, for last meeting and they're coming up. Can they also provide kind of an update on what's going on at Elm Street? I mean, it kind of falls into their category for lack of another category. But I'm interested, they should be keeping aware of that because they're involved with affordable
Was
housing.
it the trust or is it Mark Resnick who should be giving us an update on that?
I don't know, it's affordable housing. I put it in that category. I would like to hear from them. If they have to contact Mark to get that information, that's fine. And do they also have an information on the SHI inventory in town? Who's got a list of that?
It's usually updated on the state website.
Right,
Is that on the state website?
right, but again, Mark can help facilitate. that.
Okay, that'd be fine. Okay. Mark's a key guy in all of that.
Okay. I think the next item on the agenda is an off-premise wine and malt alcohol license hearing.
I move that the select board open a public hearing on the application of an annual wine and malt off-premise package store. Oh,
Package store.
yeah, there's no comma there. There should be. On-premise package store beverage license at 2 School Street, Manchester. Obviously.
Second. Jeff? Yes?
Yeah, I only had one question. How,
This
do
is
we,
just to open the public hearing.
oh, I thought we already did, oh, yeah. I vote the select, no,
I'm moving.
Brian just,
You're voting.
You're voting.
It's been seconded, we need to vote.
okay, yes.
Okay, so
Sorry.
that's not, yes,
Yeah,
yes, that's yes,
yeah.
yes. Ryan?
I have no idea what we're talking about anymore. Yeah,
Kathy?
Yes.
Anne says yes, John?
Yes.
Okay.
I messed that up.
You had a question?
Want your money back? Do we have a certain number of licenses we stick to in town?
Yeah.
We do?
Yeah.
How many are open?
2.
Two, okay.
This is the old Helen's.
This is old Helen's. Helen's gave hers up last year, so this is a new, just to kind of take
Fill that
Helen's
one out.
over.
Okay, yeah, that's the only question I had.
Yeah, I can send you the quota list.
Yeah, I believe you.
Any other questions? John, you,
No, I'm good with the application. I read through it.
okay? Ready to vote? John,
Yes.
Anne says yes, Kathy,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
okay, now we need. to
Well, that
move
was
to
the-
close.
Oh, yeah.
That was the
Close the
Yeah.
hearing.
that was to close the hearing.
Now it's my turn.
You're right, sorry.
This is,
Absolutely right, we opposed something that we need to reopen.
Okay, I move to reopen the public hearing on the application of,
I guess we just need to ignore the vote,
okay.
because
ignore
it
the
was
vote,
done in the
okay.
wrong order.
There you go, okay.
Maybe
Fine.
Mr. Delaney can help us now.
Yeah.
Can I? I move the select board close the evidentiary portion of the public hearing.
Second.
John?
yes.
Anne says yes, Kathy says yes,
Right.
Brian says yes, and Jeff.
Says yes. Yep.
Okay, now,
I am up.
you're up.
I move that the select board approve the annual wine and malt off premises package store beverage license at 2 Summer Street, be held by Oliva and Atika.
I think it should be 2 School Street, friendly amendment.
Oh, it's just.
Oh, sorry,
correct,
that
It is
was
to
mine.
school.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, school.
To be held by Oliva and Atika LLC.
Second,
Is there any further discussion? John?
Yes.
Anne says yes,
yes.
Yes.
Brian says yes,
Yes.
and Jeff says yes. Okay, having made a total hash of that. Our,
There's no place to go but up now.
We're discussing waterway.
our next item is the waterways regulation, which the language is, I think, in Greg's memo.
I might just say thank you to everyone. My name is Dave Gallagher. I was part of that,
Oh,
where you just voted on.
Oh,
Oh.
And I'd also like to thank Debbie. She was very patient with us in filling out the application. We had about 80 questions. for her.
oh,
It was fabulous. And Freddie here came to help me, so it's already been voted on. So.
All set.
Okay.
I'll send it along to the state.
Okay, thank you.
Good
everyone.
luck
you.
to you.
Thank you.
Best of luck to
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
Cheers.
cheers.
mhm.
Okay, Greg, would you mind reading what was in your memo? Yes.
Just one of that project.
Yeah.
So this is a follow-up discussion from your last go round on the waterway regulations. In particular, the current language states that if you have a bow and stern mooring, it is not to create any additional moorings anywhere in the harbor. And it really should specify just in area 1. So the intent was the first area of the harbor that was going to go to bow and stern was area 1. And in area 1, the density of the boats there is such that we didn't want to add any more moorings to area 1. And the intent by going to bow and stern was to create better passageways, a channel from the ramp out under the drawbridge, and then just in between the moored boats as well. So that's why that prohibition was put in, but it was inadvertently applied to the entire harbor. And so what's before you tonight is to stipulate that that prohibition only applies to area 1.
Do you want to add 4 words,
Correct.
4 words to that?
Yeah, so there's a sentence that starts off, no new mooring spot shall be assigned. And I want you to add the words for area 1 only, no new mooring spots shall be assigned. as part of the Bow and Stern initiative, et cetera. It's that one short paragraph. So that was one paragraph.
And I would like to suggest that we add a second sentence after that, saying that mooring spaces created by new bow and stern moorings will be assigned in the same manner as all other available moorings.
Would that be implied?
Hmm.
It's good to be explicit, given the conversations we've been having.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, wait, I see a hand. Bye,
Okay, but yes.
I believe that that is already in the language. We can check a little more closely, but that's the way it's supposed to work. Each side of a bow and stern mooring with a float is assigned from the wait list, and any new mooring would be assigned from the wait list as well.
I thought that the first side went to an existing mooring holder.
With the recreational moorings, if you want to partner with someone and have a float in between, you must partner with an existing mooring holder in the inner harbor, not from Area 7, unless it's part of their move in from the change of location list.
Okay.
So in other words, it's the same process, whether you're on a float or bow and stern or single point.
I'm just,
I
I-
guess. Please go ahead,
all
John.
right, I need that clarification. I understand you have to partner with someone who is in a mooring elsewhere in the harbor. Did you say something was special about Area 7?
Yeah, the only way you can move in from Area 7 is through the change list. So if someone wants to partner with someone who's already in the inner harbor, you can't have bow and stern in Area 7. If you want to partner with someone in the inner harbor, it's got to be somebody who's in the inner harbor or who is on the change list and their name has come up to move in to the inner harbor. In other words, you can't just pick someone who's in Area 7 and say, "Oh, I want them to come in." That's not how it works.
Because,
Because there's a change list, and
oh,
and
I understand there's a change list. Okay, I
Right.
want to go through the change list and nobody wants,
We won't go through the chain. I think we won't, but
I mean, if you go through the change list and you can't find a partner, because.
Well, you don't go through the change list. You don't go. The only way to move in from the change list is to have your name come up. Otherwise, you have to partner with somebody who's already in the inner harbor. If you can't find someone to partner with, then you don't get a float.
okay, that is certainly not clear in the regulations.
That's
I think-
confusing.
I think at this point, I would like to postpone this and get actual language, because I don't see where.
It's
Where you get to choose a partner.
You don't get to choose a partner. It comes from the wait list or the change list.
You just said you could choose a partner from inside.
Well, I apologize. I should have said, if there are two people in the inner harbor who would like to be bow and stern, if they're in the inner harbor already, those are two existing moorings. But we don't create new spots. One person who wants to partner can't pick somebody from Area 7 to move in. It's got to be an existing mooring holder in the inner harbor.
May I suggest that
Would be nice to see it.
it'd be nice to see it on a piece of
A
paper?
visual, yeah, I don't discount what you're saying, Bayan, but it helps me to see the language and.
I don't quite understand that. I don't think that directly affects this change that we're considering right now for Area
I
1.
would,
Nope. It does not.
My
It does not,
sentence.
no.
I would take out my suggestion and we just, only in area one.
Just do that one change.
Do that change now,
Add the
Just
forward.
do those
Add
4
the
words,
word.
but we gotta
and then
something,
we'll take up for another day.
yes,
Continued discussion about.
I agree.
How foreign, float-based foreign apps are handled in the rest of the island.
Yeah. Okay, so
So, do we have,
says Brian,
Brian's sleeping.
I move that so we're not amending
We're
this,
not-
okay.
not amending this.
I move that the select board approve the amendment to the waterway regulation that limits the prohibition of new moorings being created through the change to bow and stern moorings to area 1 only.
Second.
Discussion? John,
ready to vote? Yes.
Anne says yes, Kathy,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes,
and Jeff.
Yes.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is water meter replacement contract.
So I'll take the lead on this, but to just to quickly summarize, an RFP process has been completed, a very methodical one. In your packets were a summary of those results. And the recommendation is to award a contract for new meters to Stiles Company of Norwood, Mass, being the most responsive and competitive proposal that we received. Chuck can certainly go into more details, but that's the gist of what we're asking for.
Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much to add. I think, we did a very thorough process, like Greg said. This is, one of the manufacturers that we did pilot last year. So not only are we familiar with them, but, they work in town. We've, got that far, during that pilot. They're very excited to work with us, obviously. And I think they'll be, the wording that we use in the RFP process is most advantageous to the town.
So I did mention, RFP process for the installer is separate. That's underway, and so you'll be seeing that at a subsequent meeting. So right now, what you're awarding is the company to provide the meters themselves.
Right, so just a quick on that is, we're getting, we will be getting stock of the existing meters. So my plan is that our guys will install out on Old Essex Road, which is where the water main works, so it's, very convenient to do that while we're on bypass. Also, there's a few houses out on Forest Street that are still on bypass, so we'll switch those over. We will also switch out the ones that were of the other meter manufacturer that we did in the pilot, so there's, a dozen to 2 dozen of those in the system, so, we'll have our guys get familiar with this system by doing those installs and, getting it up to speed. Also, if anybody comes in and, with new construction or, split meters or adding irrigation meters, we'll have stock to hand out over the next couple months. And we'll keep going as much as we can with our own guys, but, ultimately to get the, couple thousand of these installed, we will need another contractor. So the idea is to make sure we get as much done with our guys, and then we will supplement that with the remaining appropriation that we had for the meter project.
Are there any second meters in the first group that you're going to do with your own guys? Any second meters that have not had any water use in the past 2 years?
Not to my knowledge, so like I said, I guess I'd have to look at Old Essex Road, I'm not 100% sure. But like none of the, meters that were part of the pilot program, right, those are all, have been used and being used.
Quick question, Chuck, this is Kathy. Excuse me. So you decided to go with a supplier that uses the cell phone connections to transmit the data.
Yep.
And do you have any concern? I think that's great. I'm just wondering if you had any concerns about other dead zones in some areas of town that don't have cell phone connections, and what would you do about that?
So one of our criteria within the RFP process was that every respondent needed to guarantee 100% connectivity. So, they are all aware of that, and they do their own propagation studies to confirm that. It's a desktop analysis, so, certainly there could be some issues. But it'll be up to the manufacturer if they have an issue with their unit that does the transmitting to basically make that right. So there'll be a couple options that they could do in that situation. One would be to, our current system goes from the meter that's usually typically in the basement via cord to, the outside, and then there's the MXU that's mounted on the outside. So the idea is they will be able to install just in the basement without running their MXU equivalent to the outside. But in the event they don't get that signal inside, they would put it outside, which is the equivalent of our current setup. If that doesn't work, then they might need to go to an outside, solution where, they would have to install a pit. And then, then hopefully they get better, eye to the sky, if you will. But they're confident that they'll get 100% without any kind of additional.
So
issues.
basically, though, it's on the manufacturer to make it
Yep.
right, not the
Yep.
town. That was my.
Yeah, and the way it works when you install, they either swipe it to turn on, or you can do it via an app on your, anybody's phone or tablet. And just to make sure there's connectivity before they leave the site. So the idea there is that we're not having to go back and, because 45 minutes later, or, a day later, or, a month later, we're not getting the coverage that we were getting. They'll know right away that they're getting the coverage before they leave the house.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Do we need a motion?
Yeah, I forgot.
I move that we award the contract for the water meter replacement of the water meters for the new water meter. I move that we approve a contract with, Styles of Norwood for replacement water meters.
So,
Further discussion? John,
yes.
Anne says yes, Kathy,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
and Jeff.
Yes.
Okay. The next is to review and approve non-essential water ban.
Yeah, Kathy and I spoke about this a little bit. This actually grew out of, I guess, Article 14 in our warrant, where the state has asked us to define a non-essential outdoor water use and to add that definition to our, what is it? Article 8, of water and sewer commissioners in our bylaws. And we needed to really address the issue of consumer drip irrigation and accommodate that in Article 14. And a suggestion at this point is to add a comment at the end of the definition of non-essential outdoor water use that says for drip irrigation of plants when under a stage 1 or stage 2 drought declaration. And we learned subsequent to our meeting last week that there are 3 stages of drought declaration. Drip irrigation is allowed in stage 1 and stage 2, but not in stage 3. And by the way, the drought warning that we're under right now is a stage 3, so you can't drip your plants.
The state establishes that?
Yeah.
Right.
So in
Sure, yeah.
the addition, we just say for drip irrigation of plants, you could irrigate for drip irrigation of plants when under a stage 1 or stage 2, and that's really not defined anywhere in
And
our.
what about the hand watering? Did we?
I think that was going to be a problem under any of these. Is that correct, Greg?
I turned to Chuck on that one. I don't know if you know
Chuck.
that offhand, Chuck.
Yeah, no, hand watering at stage 3 would not be allowed either.
What was that?
Stage 3 would not allow hand watering.
What about stage 1 and 2?
I'd have to check. Definitely, if you give me 5 minutes while you keep talking, I'll find out for sure, but I'm
I
pretty sure.
think the issue though is,
I think you can in stage 1 and 2.
what about, we talked, I forgot the answer, new plantings and also trees. And we're about to get have another discussion on all those trees that are being planted. They have to be watered. So even in a stage 3 drought, are you allowed to water new plantings, or you can't
Yes.
give them any water?
No, so nursery activities are allowed to
No, I'm
continue.
just talking about homeowners. If a homeowner like planted something, this week, and then next week, the stage 3 was declared, are they gonna watch all their new plantings die?
Well, so that's what I'm saying, that's considered new planting, new nursery activity.
So
So
even
that-
though it's on a
even
homeowner's
though it's not
lot,
the
it is
home-
considered
yes.
new nursery activity.
Well, and maybe that alters then bullet I, which says to establish a new lawn is necessary to establish, stabilize soil. Maybe you have to say new lawn or new plants
Plants.
and put that in there. Because it's silent on that
I
stage 1.
apologize. Are you looking at something in the package or just the original, the stuff that was?
It's
on the
it's
website?
under Article 14.
No, it's not in the package.
Okay, that's what I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it's Article 14. I'm looking at the warrant. And the warrant has the non-essential outdoor water use and has A through I, all of the circumstances under which you can and cannot.
All of the circumstances under which you can.
You can, that's crazy. It's very crazy wording. I will agree. But these are the things. And one is to establish a new lawn, but as Kathy points out,
But to establish a new lawn for a purpose.
I just feel that we're gonna have a real hard
Plants.
time, enforcing something that we don't clearly understand. And if how do we make this easy for people to do the right thing?
I think you looked at Tiffany and say,
Yeah.
spell it out. People aren't going to read this.
Right. But I think we need that magic, before the town meeting and actually bring it to.
Yeah, so she's working on that, so
But what you're saying is we have no power to change. The state dictates all of this stuff.
they do.
That answers your question, right, Brian?
Yes.
Okay,
So we really need to follow the edicts.
okay. But we have the capability of adding this additional bullet.
You can add some clarifying language. Yes.
Okay. Which was for drip irrigation of plants when under a stage 1 or stage 2 drought declaration.
Well, that's already part of their definition.
Okay.
You're just.
We don't need to
You're
add it. It's already,
reiterating.
okay.
It's fine to reiterate it. It doesn't hurt.
What happens if the town meeting votes this down? I think there are a lot of people who like. to
Yeah,
have plants.
myself included. I mean, there's reasonable, people want to,
Yeah.
do the right thing.
Yeah.
They also don't want their investment to die, especially if it's a new
I
investment.
mean, we're talking about this specifically because there are people that have brought this up.
Well,
And Yeah.
can I add a couple things maybe?
Chuck?
Yes, Chuck, please.
Yeah, so just, the state is the one running the show on this, and they're expecting, every water registration to be in compliance with, this bylaw requirement. So that's why we're here. They are not, the state will not be enforcing it. They're leaving that to the local authority, which would be, the select board through the water department. I'm a water commissioner in Wenham. Wenham's in this every year because of the Ipswich Basin, that we used to have a permit. Now we're just a registration, but it's the same thing. And, we do not run around in Wenham telling our water department to, hand out fines and tickets. We try first through education, then through, so like if we knock on somebody's door and they just planted a new lawn for a new septic system, or they, put in all these new plantings, my neighbor has brand new plantings, they're watering. They're gonna, try and talk to that person first. They're not just going around looking for a reason to find their residents. So I would expect we would kind of use that same approach here. And, I think that, that they're just looking for everybody to have that ability to, kind of do this education.
What's the fine?
Say again, sorry, I didn't hear you.
What is the fine?
So in our bylaw, I think it's either $100 for the first offense, or maybe it's 300, and then each additional offense. offense.
Each day is a new offense.
Each time we catch you watering. So like, that's the other thing, is like, we're not, you know, if somebody's watering and we don't catch them, then, you know, I don't think that really counts. That's more where the education comes in.
So this, as it reads, it is silent on drip irrigation.
I believe it is defined as drip irrigation is defined and it is not allowed in stage 3, like Greg said, for sure.
We understand that.
And I mean, that's the other thing is you cannot see somebody drip irrigating. So like, you know, as much as we want to do the right thing, if somebody decides to, you know, use their drip irrigation and not turn it off because we're in a stage 3 drought, I don't really think we're gonna ever catch that person.
Except by looking at the second water meter.
Yeah, we don't have the time or the ability to kind of,
Drip irrigation is not defined here.
Chuck, how long have we been in stage 3?
well, the most recent stage 3 was, I believe, the end of March, which is why I forwarded it to Greg and Debbie to get on the agenda for the next available meeting, which was tonight. So that's why we're going back into a stage 3, but they did declare one, whatever it was, back in November when you guys declared the drought. They lifted it in January, I believe. So we lifted it in January. And then, you know, less than 2 months later, over, you know, a winter season, or, you know, over
I think it
winter.
was 1 February that. end of February.
Yeah.
Was this a distinction between the stages, or is it just a drought or no drought?
Between the stages. So we went from a stage 3, which is critical, to stage 2, and now we're back to stage 3 again.
Oh, okay, so the drought warning, it was always there, it was just
Stage.
the stages.
Yeah, we didn't, and you know, this is another thing where I'm on calls with the state about this stuff all the time. And, you know, through Mass Waterworks as well as others. And, you know, I told them their messaging really sucks because it's really impossible for us to be in and out of drought this much. Just because they say so. Like, you know, the normal person is not that up on that, especially over the winter months. We are actually recommending that they don't even do anything over the winter because it's just going to confuse the message, you know, today as we're seeing, because, you know, now it is April and we have had, you know, rain the last week, but here we are.
So how are
There's a
residents,
lag between what conditions are on the ground versus when they make their declarations.
so how are residents supposed to know what stage we're at all the time?
So.
Well, the only time we really have to, you know, enforce anything is stage 3 non-essential use is completely banned. So that's, you know, seeing people's sprinklers going off, you know, in the middle of the rain.
Right, but what I'm saying is, how does some, you know, like, unless somebody's watching this meeting right now, how are they gonna know we're in a stage 3 drought right now?
Oh, well, so, you know, as soon as we, you know, you guys declare a vote to declare it, we would have Tiffany put out the notice, we would put it on the website, you know, it'd be in the tide over the, you know, until we lift it, you know, all that kind of stuff. But there is no like, you know, we could, if you wanted to, we could do additional communication, like putting out, you know, the message boards or, you know, doing a, you know, code red or, you know, something like that. but
Right.
It really hasn't been to that critical
So-
level for us.
This whole paragraph on non-essential outdoor water use is defining what that is for stage 3. Not for stage 1 or stage 2, so you can be in a drought status. But if it's in 1 or 2, non-essential outdoor water use does not apply.
Well, so not quite, John. What we're defining is the
quite.
non-essential use, because we need to all be on the same page as what is essential and non-essential, and it's clearly defined in the Water Management Act. What we're saying is only certain things are banned, whether you're at stage 1, 2, or 3. And so, you know, stage 3 is all non-essential use is banned. But in 1 and 2, we could do, this is the other thing that are already existing in our bylaw, and what's permitted is to say, you know, let's only do odd even watering. Let's only do once a week watering. So that's what would be voting on if we decided we wanted to regulate non-essential use during a stage 1 or stage 2, we would do those things. But we still need to use the same definition for non-essential use. So we don't have people watering every day necessarily on, you know, a stage 2, if we choose to, you know, enforce that. But those are things that are kind of left to the community, not dictated by, you know, the state. Stage 3 is very clear, all essential non-use is
So,
banned.
so basically though, this section, non-essential outdoor water use, these things that are listed, even though, they are allowed. These are the things that are allowed. And so when
Yeah.
it comes to plants, for example, that's under the section of commercial operations of a business. So plant nurseries as necessary to maintain, they're talking about commercial operations, they're not talking about
Yeah,
a
I'm
homeowner.
talking- yeah.
So, I think the only thing that affects homeowners here are the swimming pools, the, establishing a new lawn is allowed. But other than that, everything is a no-go.
What about gardens?
That's what I'm saying, no, that's not allowed,
That's not allowed.
according
No,
to.
that's not true. The
Okay, so where in this
watering
list?
for watering for vegetables is allowed.
Vegetables, yes,
So
but
that
not,
falls under agriculture?
it falls under C, production of food on this warrant,
So,
but not flowers. If someone has flowers or something like that, you can't.
Right. Yeah, well, that's what I want.
Food.
yeah, just making sure you mix it in with the tomatoes.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, this is as clear as mud. We need to.
This, yeah, it is not very clear. So Chuck, are you saying that perhaps we shouldn't change any of the language in this non-essential water use definition at all?
So that is pulled directly from the Water Management Act. So that's why it's there. If you, again, we can certainly change it, but I would recommend not, because
Okay, all right.
in the event somebody from DEP is going through everybody's bylaws, that's what they're gonna be looking for.
But I think we need to clarify things at some point in the future as to what's going on here, because this is,
So I think that's, again, where our own messaging comes into play.
yes.
I would, I guess my recommendation to you is to sort of stick with what the state is asking for, so that we can check that box. And then as we implement these, we can do our messaging around what we're most concerned about.
We can message and
Yes.
self-police
Yes,
is what it
yes,
amounts.
Exactly.
yes.
Exactly.
Okay,
So I understand the desire to be as clear as possible, and obviously that's what we should try to do. But I also don't think we should kill ourselves trying to make this perfect.
no. Okay, so Chuck, in addition, with regard to our Article 8 in our bylaws, you made a couple of other modifications. Are you suggesting that we make those so that it better fits the language that we've got here? Should we do that all at the same time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so the other two were pretty minor, I thought. The one was, it looked
Yeah.
like there was an omitted word in a definition, so it's just, putting that omitted word back in. And then the other one was just making sure we refer to non-essential use, because obviously our previous bylaw didn't really use the term non-essential outdoor
Yes,
use.
by,
And so now by putting the definition in for non-essential use, we should use that definition in the teeth of the bylaw.
Bylaws.
Yep.
and it's there.
So now, yeah, that solves both of those issues as well as
Okay.
adding the definition.
Sarah Melish?
Yes, so this is crazy.
Sarah, your name and address. I guess we have your name, but.
Sorry, Sarah Mellish, 11 Bennett Street. To me, this is crazy. We've had 2.5 inches of rain in the last 2 weeks. And we're talking about putting in restrictions on watering. I've spent probably $50,000 on shrubs on my yard, which is on granite. And if it's not watered, I lose them all. And with global warming, we want the shrubs. So this makes absolutely no sense to me. It seems to me that we should be able to look at the water table in Manchester and the amount of rainfall in Manchester and not have to go after a larger circumference of the state uses, which is delayed. Thank you.
Are there any other public comments?
Caterina Gates to Desmond School Street. I've noticed many times, because we've lived here a long time, neighbors or friends of ours, that they have underground piping, you know? I don't know if they time it for every day. They just have rain sometimes coming like crazy, and they have the showers in the morning. I mean, during the day, the grass watered by their own sprinklers, which is crazy. Maybe that should be a problem. What else can you control?
I think at the moment we are trying to comply with state law, which as we've seen, does in other cases, she didn't say in DPA zoning, not everyone agrees with. But
You don't have much of a choice.
No, not at this point.
And that's bottom line is, to Sally's point and to everyone else's point, yes, it doesn't make any sense, but
That's Massachusetts.
it's Massachusetts.
So
we're not changing
anything in the article in the warrant,
in the article in the warrant, are we going to add the omitted word and the reference to the,
which omitted word was that? Because I think we're just gonna go with it as it is, so we don't have to do anything in the warrant. Chuck
I
says
thought
this-
Chuck said
No,
he noticed something.
those other things are not in the warrant, they are in our bylaws.
yeah.
No, but we
you
need
can't
to, we need to amend the bylaw to have those additional,
Okay, yes, no, I agree, and there are
so
two,
that'll be part of the motion
Okay,
that'll
okay,
be made.
Okay.
Which will differ slightly from the warrant.
all right,
yes.
and it's in only two places, and it's just like one word that
Right, I think
So
it's easily explained.
clarifies,
Right.
so,
So the motion will be different from the article, that happens.
right, only for
Within
those
the four
words.
corners.
Yep.
Okay, so I guess that's a discussion. We don't have, there's no action to be taken.
So back to the main part, which
Main
is
part, which is declare a drought.
declare
Ah,
a
that's
Stage
three
where this all started.
which with any luck gets lifted if this weather continues.
You ready for a motion?
Yeah,
I move the select board declare an outdoor water ban for all non-essential outdoor water use until further notice.
second. Further discussion. Jeff,
No,
Brad,
No,
Kathy,
No,
John,
I don't like it either, no. Besides,
this is a very unusual situation.
yes, it is.
We are unwilling to change the definitions, but willing to turn down the whole thing. And Ed votes no.
I like we're going on.
I'm sure.
So we got a letter from the state or something, I don't know what happens now.
We'll see if they catch up to us.
Okay,
Right, I could give a little bit, so, the way, so right now, I don't think they're busy enough, they're not gonna do anything. The issue is gonna be at every year, I have to, or even before then, but I have to notify, whenever you guys vote these things, I have a form for DEP that I have to send in to DEP to say that we have instituted the non-essential ban. So I don't think, up until last year when this started, they had the new state drought plan. I don't think they ever really cared. Now I think they're probably putting those in a file and they're looking to see, I'm sure we go in some sort of database and they'll say, okay, Manchester did or did not institute a ban, and they'll line that up when the state declared the drought. So I don't think we'll get in trouble today or tomorrow. I don't think we'll get in trouble maybe this year, but eventually, this type of thing will catch up.
we'll ask for forgiveness instead of. Going to take that
I
risk.
mean, they may lift this in a month.
definitely down the road.
I will say, I think they actually meet tomorrow to decide whether or not to lift the ban. But the data, the way I understand it, the data from this last week, like Sarah was saying, is actually not included in that update. They purposely have made the criteria that they're evaluating on a kind of rolling basis. All of the, drought monitors for all the streams and, depth charges on monitoring wells that they have across the state. And, for us, it's the Northeast region. They're only looking at the data through, in this case, March 31st. So they're missing what's happened in the last week, even though that's their discussion tomorrow, is they're omitting any data from April.
When
So
did they do-
so it purposely probably will not change until the next time they meet, which is probably later in April.
When did they declare this this drought? When did they move? to
I
like a
can
week ago?
forward you.
No,
No, it was a little bit more, because, it was
I think it'll be-
last month was the funny month because you guys, last Monday was, the 31st or whatever, so. You guys-
Okay.
But so it was, a week and a half or so before that. So we're 2.5 weeks in, probably.
Some stuff doesn't make sense on snow lot. This is one of those lots.
I'm gonna
It
take
was
a comment.
about for common
Yeah,
sense.
this is a common sense
This
approach.
is a common
All right.
sense. And it's raining outside. so it's-
Yes, okay.
And nobody's going to be watering in
Right.
early April.
That's right. There's nobody to punish anyway, so.
Common sense is not so common sometimes. We find.
True statement.
Becoming endangered species, that's for sure.
What's,
Okay.
okay. What's next is the Friends of Trees. And Jody Morse can't be here. She had eye surgery this morning. There are there are 3 trees that are in the main area of Rosedale, which she has negotiated with for DEP and others, which are 2 hickories by the entrance and 1 new sour gum on the northeast corner. And what the Friends of Trees would like is to look further at the area between the school parking lot and the nearest graves, and see if we can negotiate with the district and perhaps redraw the line so as to give the cemetery some more room, and come back in a year or 2 with a cemetery plan and a planting plan that work together to create some new grave sites and provide some screening between the high school parking lot and the cemetery. And so the Friends of Trees would like you to approve the 2 hickories and 1 sour gum. I'm sorry, it's gonna be a nice Sylvatica that were shown on the plot.
What about all of the other trees
Right.
that we discussed the last time? I'm
Mm,
confused.
in discussion with the families of people who are there, they have removed a number of trees.
I see some Xed out on the,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but I was wondering if the other ones we had talked about were gonna get planted, or there was like 20 or 30, I forget how many.
Yeah.
Of those original population, how many are actually gonna get planted?
3,
Just 3.
just 3.
And the whole plan is being deferred a year until the rest of the plan is being deferred a year until they can talk about those property lines and
Yeah.
et cetera.
And-
Okay.
and
They will come back, but they're like 15 or 16, I think.
Well, is the quantity of trees, is this an effort to reach a status? of an
Well, the
arboretum?
arboretum, but there was also other reasons for it.
But I mean, I would try to, is
Would
the
they
goal
go
to
back-
create an arboretum, so we have to have these many trees? As opposed to, again, a common sense approach to
At the moment, there is possibility for creating the necessary conditions for an arboretum in the space that will be looked at over the next year. So the space between the high school parking lot.
you think that's the ultimate goal?
I think the Friends of Trees would like an arboretum. They've had some pushback. And they're responding to it.
Mhm.
Well, I'm willing to wait and see what they've got.
Well, they have to come back to us when they say, okay, we're going to move ahead. They will come back. Fine.
Right now, they just want their permission to plant
It's
these
1, 2,
3 trees.
Mhm.
4, right? Oh, no.
just a new,
The one
The
marked
2
new
hickories.
Yeah.
and the
then-
2
Yeah.
hickories, and they have worked with the DPW to locate those, and then there's actually a marker for the 2 hickories.
And this
And there's-
keeps everybody happy that's not happy, kind of.
the families.
This is in response to the complaints from the families. I do not guarantee anyone's happiness.
Well, no, I know that, but
Well, they addressed the concerns of the
They
families
addressed the
about
concerns.
providing too much shade.
Yeah.
The families want to pick
Yes.
those plots for the sunshine and they didn't
Right.
want that to change.
So this will take care
This
of
will
that.
take care of that.
Okay.
So we don't have a motion, but I will move that we approve the planting of 3 new trees in Rosedale Extension as shown on plan 325.25. 3.25.25.
Second,
John,
Yes.
Ann says yes.
Yes.
Kathy says yes. Brian
Yes.
and Jeff.
yes.
Okay. The next is to review and approve the municipal energy aggregation plan.
So the plan really is outlining the steps that the aggregator would perform for us, our consultant, and your process for choosing a supplier, and then the process by which people participate. All of that follows pretty closely, has to follow closely the various state guidelines that are put into place for municipal aggregation. So it's pretty boilerplate language for these plans. We had the plan up for longer than the required 30 days for comment periods. We did not receive any comments. So the plan is ready for your approval. So once you approve it, which I recommend you do this evening, then the consultant will submit it to the state. They should approve it since it follows their guidelines very closely. And then once that is approved by the state, then they're able to proceed with soliciting bids from suppliers. And then we'll be back before you with the results of those bids. And then you would, in consultation with them, make some choices about what to offer residents for.
When do we expect them to come back with it? If we approve tonight, how long will it take them to come back to us?
So with the RFP process, probably first of the fall. By the time the state, I think, I want to say they have 3 months to approve it once we submit it. Maybe 4 months.
How many options do they come back with? Is that codified or
Well, they recommend you offer 2 to 3
oh,
options.
2 to 3? Okay.
You know, typically, sort of a standard offer that mimics the current state required mix of
Mhm.
conventional versus green energy, sort of a middle of the road offering that is a little greener, if you will, than the state offering, and then 100%. So typically, those are the 3 offerings that you make.
State equivalent, slightly green, all green.
Yes,
Oh, those 3.
yes. Yes, exactly.
And they'll come back to us.
Yes.
Let us know what's going on.
So then can we add that to the action item list for the September 1, just to,
It should be targeted around September that you should.
we don't forget about it.
And that assumes that, you know, they get good bids and good prices. Sometimes they recommend, you know what, we struck out, so we suggest you wait until the market changes again. But they'll advise us on all of that.
Okay.
Sarah has Millish has her sign up.
Sarah Melish, please.
Yes, so I have solar and I pay no electric bills, but I receive a grand total of between $6 and $9 a month for something. And does this adversely impact the receipt of that rebate from National Grid?
No, it does not. There's
Okay,
no impact on that at all.
okay, thanks.
In that instance, does she have to opt out, or are they not going to? It doesn't impact if you opt out.
Correct. Or even if she opts in, Sarah can still opt in. She's just not going to be getting much supply along because she's
Right.
getting it from
That's
those
correct.
panels.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's sort of agnostic for her.
All right. Motion
Yes,
that the select board approve Manchester's energy aggregation plan for state submittal.
Second,
Jeff,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Kathy,
yes.
and Ann says yes. And
John
John.
says yes.
Okay. Right. And the next item on the agenda is discussion and vote on the new town administrator. And I am going to take on number 5 and say, I move that the select board appoint Anthony Barletta as the new town administrator.
Second,
Discussion.
I could say a few comments.
Sure.
Because I wrote them up. All right, so, well, I think we all went into this town administrator search process a few months ago, thinking it's the most important decision that we'll make, certainly in the last year or two, and maybe the last several years of the town. And I was, frankly, I was worried, or at least wondering whether just how it would all work out. After last week's interviews, I still think it's the most important decision that we're going to make, but I'm no longer worried about how it might work out. We interviewed 3 well-qualified candidates last week, the finalists in the selection process, and our town, I think, would be well served by any of them. I want to thank all of them for the time and effort that they devoted to learning about Manchester by the Sea and to sharing their thoughts with us. The screening committee did a great job in winnowing down the applicant pool, and I thank them for their time and effort. It was a job well done. We should be honored that there were so many applicants, from what I understand, 17, who expressed an interest in serving the citizens of our community. And while each of the finalists had experience in serving small coastal communities, they otherwise had different backgrounds to bring to our next town administrator's job. John Apple served 2 communities over 13 years as an administrator, and so he has the perspective of how 2 different towns operate. And he's worked in the marine private sector. Tony Barletta has been an administrator for 7 years and spent several years in state government. So he has firsthand knowledge of state agencies, how to work with them, and how they can be a resource. And Chuck Dam has been our DPW director for 7 years. So he certainly knows our town and our staff and is certainly especially familiar with the capital budget challenges that we face. But I think that Tony Barletta is the best fit for our town for the future. He was confronted with budget problems when he arrived in Nahant in 2018, developed a way to deal with them, and successfully communicated that plan with the citizens to gain the needed support. Manchester is going to have similar challenges with its capital budget in the next few years. He's filled many department head roles, some due to retirements or departures, and others because people needed to be replaced. He's developed a positive work environment in the town hall, and those new employees are still with him. And that skill set has also served him well in dealing with the union contracts covering many of the town's employees also. He successfully has pursued grant opportunities for Nahant. Grants are a very important part of Manchester's finances, as we all know, particularly on the capital side. With fewer grants expected to be available in the coming years, his experience in state government will be a plus in our search for those resources. And his references say he's straightforward, thoughtful, and transparent, earning people's trust every day. I think we all saw that during his interview last week. Communication skills are an important part of this job. And he said that he would adapt to the communication style of the select board. There are 5 of us sitting up here, and each of us has a different style. So I think that's going to take a little time and effort should he be selected for this whole slot. So in conclusion, I'm confident that the commitment and passion that Tony has shown for Nahant will readily transfer to Manchester. And I am happy to second the motion to nominate him as our next administrator.
Thank you. I should have said at the beginning that we will not take public comment on this topic.
I'd also like to just say a few words. You said everything beautifully, John. And I agree with 100% all the words that you said. The only thing that I would add is I expect a different level of engagement with the residents. It's something that we as a board have talked about the past 3 years. I've been on the board. We struggle with communicating effectively to the residents. And what impressed me about Mr. Barletta was no matter what the topic was, he talked about listening to the residents as a core part of his process in the beginning, not trying to come up with a solution and sell it to the residents at the end. I found that very compelling, and I think he can really help us with that particular gap we struggle with right now. So I think I thought long and hard about this and watched the videos multiple times because it is an important decision. And we had a very difficult choice. But I agree with the motion.
I can say a few words. I'm conflicted. All right, I think that all three candidates could do a fine job here in town. Okay, everything you said about Tony Barletta, I agree with. Okay, I think in a vacuum, if I were to look at a town administrator, Tony is the one. I'm not, but I'm also looking at what I believe to be in the best interest of the community. And I'm looking at the struggles we're gonna have going forward. I like the idea of someone who is well-versed in the challenges we have coming up in front of us, right? Especially, as you pointed out, as money dries up, okay, from the state and federal government, we have to look at, I want someone who's be able to prioritize who's the architect for for the $100 million worth of work they're going for us. So what I'm still struggling with is sometimes I'm looking what is the best candidate for the town of Manchester, not just the best town administrator. And so I'm looking at Chuck, I'm looking at Tony as those two, and that's where I'm at right now.
I think, John, you hit it out of the park. You pretty much, and Kathy, you guys pretty much covered it. I tell you, I really struggled with this. Like you guys said, we had three great candidates and we couldn't do bad by any of them. But I do agree with you guys. I think Tony is the best. Going forward, his ability to deal at the state level and his knowledge there, I think is we can really use that going forwards.
Okay, I don't have. I made my statement at the beginning. So, John,
Yes.
Anne says yes,
Yes,
Brian, oh, Jeff,
Yes.
give you another minute, 30 seconds.
So I want to go, so no matter how, we're going to want to have a unanimous vote at some point, correct? All right. So I'm gonna say no at this point,
Okay.
okay? I still feel that, I feel
it's
strong.
important your position is recorded as
Yes.
with your conscience. That's important.
Yeah, basically, that's exactly.
That's it.
Part of my conscience.
You have to vote your conscience, yeah.
Right.
So then what is the next motion then? Is that to support the next town administrator? How would you suggest that? Asking Mr. Petron?
On the books at 4-1.
Yeah.
If someone wishes to make a motion of reconsideration at this point or in the future, that's prerogative of the board for a unanimous vote. Doesn't need to be, but that's a, consideration a board can give.
So I would like to make a motion that we consider giving our unanimous support.
Why don't we give our unanimous support to
To
Antonio?
Mr. Barletta
Mr.
as
Barletta.
our next town administrator.
Second.
Discussion? John,
Yes.
Anne says yes,
Yes,
Yes.
Brian
Yes.
and Jeff. Okay,
Congratulations.
thank you.
Great.
And
Thank
the
you
choice
very
is
much.
done.
Yes, you did a great job.
I'm glad you struggled with the decision in a positive way. So that's a very good piece. So now the board needs to set its negotiating panel to meet with Mr. Barletta as the next step.
Mhm.
And then just a reminder that this isn't finalized until you finalize a contract.
Right.
In the near future. So you have a candidate in waiting at this point. So you need to negotiate with that candidate as soon as possible. and then come back, you'll be coming back to the board to approve the contract moving forward.
I think we need to choose two of us
Two of us to be
to negotiate. the contract.
contractors.
Can't be more than two, so.
Right. Okay, that's two we're backing up.
All right, I'll be one.
Jeff, Kathy?
Depends on, if I can do
Yeah.
it, I'll do it, but
For me, it's not a lack of desire. I don't want to hold up the process, so I do have some time constraints. I'm happy to.
Well, I do. I'm gone for
Yeah.
5 days coming up,
Okay, well, whoa, okay.
Saturday to Thursday. And what's the time? I mean, we want to do this.
We need to do this.
So-
I suggest you get it, you know, you've got, you don't need.
I got
to
this
post
week.
it, You've got.
I got all
you
this
know,
week.
So you got this week, so, you know, get the conversation going, you know, and see where you're at.
Okay,
So ideally, you would be ready to ratify in 2
in
weeks.
20, on the
And then
22nd.
Yes.
I don't know, I assume this was in your wheelhouse, that's why.
I know it's strictly timing. I have afternoons, or if it's in the morning, I can do it.
It can certainly be one person, there's no rule of, you know, two.
I would like to have
We should
two.
have
Yeah,
two.
I think we should have two.
You are generally available in the morning.
I'm available all day, pretty much every day right now.
My
until
afternoons are
summer.
tough. Like, if
but-
it can be in the morning, I can meet in the morning.
Next week, I'm just gone
Okay.
3 days. It's 4
Well-
days. But all this week is good.
Mornings.
That's what happens when you retire.
Well, wait a
Never know.
minute, I'm retired too. and my
That's true.
schedule's a mess right now.
Unfortunately, I'm in a position where I'll never.
All right, okay.
Okay,
Keep going. We'll keep going. Our team will keep going. How's that?
okay, fine.
So who?
So who connects with?
Who connects?
So I'll connect with all three tonight, just to let them know their status. And then it's up to you. You can work through Greg with, you know, do you have his cell? Greg, do you have,
Tony's cell.
Tony's cell? Yeah, so Greg has Tony's cell, I
Yeah.
can forward it to, and so make contact. You know, amongst you folks, but I'll notify the three of their status, this evening.
Great,
We'll do
yeah,
that
let's do it
tomorrow.
by text messaging, email. I'll never find it.
Assume we have a starting contract.
We just erase your name, right?
It's in the place to start.
That's it. Okay.
I'll see that one.
Okay, good. You'll be hearing from us tomorrow.
And if you have questions, I'm available, you know, so you have my cell phone number, so.
Yes.
Anything arises, feel free to contact me on a question.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you for answering this for us.
Yeah, I thought this was going to be awful, and it was only dreadful.
Now, again, you had a very good screening committee, so I want to thank
Yeah.
the screening committee once again, as I
Yeah,
said, you know, prior to, and, you know, the only awful part is setting schedules. You know, so that's always the tough part of what we do, is getting 9 members of the screening committee to agree to times. But other than that, you know, everything went basically fairly smooth, and I'm glad you had a very difficult, you know, you had things to think about, you know, as you were making your final decision. So
Yeah, sure.
you had 3 candidates who put themselves forward, and certainly I want to thank all of the candidates who had put themselves
Yes,
forward.
absolutely.
Yeah, you know, this is my first time going through a public set of interviews, and I really have to applaud all the candidates for this is really putting yourself out there, you know, in a way that
It is.
a lot of people
People
don't.
don't
So,
quite, Greg and I have been
Yeah.
through it, but you know, people don't
Right.
quite understand.
No.
Sitting in front with the TV going.
They deserve a lot of credit, all of them. Yep.
Sure.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jacques.
Okay. Liaison updates.
Don't have anything. Planning board's meeting now.
Yes.
It's Wednesdays.
The Parks and Rec, the pickleball is up and running.
Mhm.
Slight incident,
Oh.
middle of last week. Well, it was just DPW was in the court putting up the
The sound
the
back.
sound pads. I think they left for a bit, it was unlocked, and someone said, oh, this is good, I can go in there.
With the cameras on the ground and.
Waiting with bated breath.
So, but that was quickly taken care of. And, so. And as long as the weather holds like this, we won't have any complaints about it. And we won't have to worry about droughts
We won't
either.
have to worry about
Checked off a lot of boxes.
And as far as, beach tax. Over, almost 600 was sold online, another 300 were walking so far, this close to. Over 900, beach tax already sold within the first 7 days. So, that's, going pretty well, and apparently it's not been a pain for, Parks and Rec to deal with it at this point.
It's encouraging to see more and more use of the online. So people are availing themselves. It's discounted during April, so you can get it a little less expensively and you get it online.
We can say even more clearly to anyone who happens to be listening, buy your beach tags now, save money.
Right.
There you
Tough sell when you look out the window.
go.
We're just gonna go to the beach.
Oh, just over the beach.
Or be of a certain age, you don't need a tag.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
and if you got people who use your car.
I understand.
not making it that fast, so.
When's the last time you were on the beach?
I don't know. I don't
Okay.
like, I don't like.
Okay.
Kathy,
Let's see. Oh, so regarding the liaison assignments, nothing new on bike and ped right now. There's been a lot of discussion at the downtown improvement. I think I mentioned this at a prior meeting around working with the Chamber of Commerce to help reinvigorate our downtown. Coincidentally, there have been some discussion on Facebook as well, collecting good ideas.
Mhm.
So I did reach out to the chair of the downtown improvement committee to connect with those folks who were sharing ideas online, so that hopefully you get one set of ideas. If something needs to be brought to the select board, it's a cohesive set of recommendations instead of, you know,
right.
bunch of
Warren.
different people. Yeah, we don't need warring factions here. We just, it would be nice if the residents could come to some consensus before they come to the select board. So, and I offered to help. So other than that, I think that's all I got for new news.
Yeah, just a comment on the seniors. Susan Beckman, who is heading up the money-raising initiative of the senior center leasehold improvements, met with the seniors, I guess, on 2 occasions over the past 2 weeks, Friends of the Council on Aging, and has also met with Nancy Hammond to start to lay groundwork with regard to how this money-raising initiative is going to play out. And she will continue to meet, I know with the seniors, probably once every 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, at least once a month and maybe more, and probably more frequently as time goes forward. So things are starting to move along there. She will go, shall I say, more public with all of that once the PNS is signed.
The most recent school committee meeting, which I did not attend, but have heard and read about. The superintendent described the worst case scenario, which is that we don't come to an agreement and they go on what's called the 12/12ths budget, where both towns are required to come up with their appropriate share of last year's budget 1 month at a time. It's removes, I think, 22 people who are student facing. There was enormous public comment. I believe all of it against the idea of a 12/12 budget. There's the way that would happen is we have a budget. There are 2 town meetings, and then Essex has an override vote. If Essex fails, if it fails in either town meeting or the override vote fails, then the school committee puts together another budget, which probably can't be higher because that just makes everything awkward, but perhaps could.
Technically it can be, but
Yeah, okay. And we go through the town meeting thing again. And then, if either town turns the budget down, and if they reduce the budget, there is a strong group in Manchester who would encourage Manchester to vote against a lower budget. Then, sometime in July, late July or August, we have a joint town meeting, which is awkward because we don't have a building, we don't have an auditorium large enough for a joint town meeting. And did you get anything on whether we can have that meeting outside of the town?
It's not clear. There's, council still trying to answer that question.
Like
This is a
where?
football-
Stadium, I mean, what?
Football field with a tent, you know?
Yeah.
Go to
yeah.
Foxborough?
Um,
The football field.
The football field like.
Outside, no, we
Yeah.
did that in COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta hope the weather's okay, but that's doable.
I don't know.
Let's hope we don't need.
So that's where that sits. We've seen lots of messaging from mostly from parents on this. So the 12/12 comes in if the joint town meeting can't agree on can't votes against the budget, which is, I think, really unlikely.
Yeah.
So the school has done a little bit of scaremongering, frankly, but
Their prerogative.
their prerogative.
Yeah.
Okay. That's everybody, consent agenda. Is there anything that anyone would like to take out of the consent agenda? Okay. Kathy, do you have a motion?
Oh, excuse me. Yes, I move that the board approve the consent agenda items.
Second. John,
Yes,
and yes, Kathy.
Yes.
Brian.
Yes.
And Jeff.
Yes.
Okay. The town administrators report.
A few announcements or updates. One, you may have heard that the drawbridge here will be undergoing maintenance between now and early June. So it will be disruptive to boaters trying to get in and out. Just to look at the schedule. So Brian will have that. It actually was printed into last week's cricket. But people should pay attention. It's intermittent in terms of its operations.
But I thought it was all weekdays. The closing was weekdays.
Yes, they are. So that,
So they'll move the barge out of the way so that it can be,
yes,
so that the drawbridge can be
it'll be functional
functional on
and people
weekends.
can get in and out during the weekends. So just a heads up on that. Just a couple of other items on the action list for updates. On Ocean Street, that was on the list again. We have some capital dollars proposed in the FY26 budget. And then we have submitted another grant proposal that we will be waiting to hear back from. If both come through, that would be great. It would allow us to do a more in-depth analysis and outreach effort. But at a minimum, we will have the dollars, assuming voters approve it as part of the capital. And then you've had some very brief conversations about having the Conservation Commission be more involved or perhaps take over tree hearings. So I'm just flagging that again to see if you have any additional thoughts. Want to have a conversation with members of the Concom, or just how would you like the next proceed?
yeah, that'd be my first question. I mean, I know kind of how I feel. How do they feel?
Right.
We don't know that yet.
Yeah, I think, as far as structural changes to the processes, I would hesitate to make any big changes until we get our new town administrator, and he might have some thoughts.
Mhm.
But I do agree that this body shouldn't be the tree, she shouldn't conduct the tree hearings.
Yeah.
I'm very much in favor of that, but how best to handle it, I'd like to hear the new town administrator.
There's also a process underway to do a better identification of town trees, because the model that the current regulations use is basically the lower part of Summer Street. Where there are sidewalks and clear definition, so. The Friends of Trees are looking at that and may be looking for somebody from this board to work with them on better definitions, and whether we want to change the tree hearings between now and then. I think Kathy's right. Just sit on it until we. Yeah.
Last item on the list I had here was for the discussion on employee volunteer of the year, the practice that we let slide over the last couple, 3-4 years. So there's been some mention of reconstituting that. So again, interested in hearing your thoughts, and do you have a desire to do that? And if so, how would you like to proceed?
I think it's a good idea.
I'm all for it. I'm a big.
I recall, I can't remember when the last time was, hasn't been the past 5 or 6 years, but
Has
maybe,
been
I think Tom Keo was still on the board.
oh, okay,
That was Tom's, I think that was one of Tom's pet project, wasn't it?
yeah.
How do we go about, do people nominate people or how does that work?
That's how it was dealt with in the past. Yes,
Yeah.
to be a nomination.
Anyone can
process.
nominate anyone?
Yeah, basically. We have it open nominations for a couple of weeks, take names, and then present those to.
So we need to publicize that,
Right.
so people know, so.
Something else for Tiffany.
You should have a committee.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good idea. What do we need to do about that? Tell Tiffany?
Yeah, we can start the process.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I,
I'm all for it. I think, I had, remember years ago asking Tom about it because I had something in mind,
Mhm.
So no, hasn't happened in quite some time.
great,
Okay, we'll pull together some materials and.
that'd be fine.
Great. Final item is an executive session pursuant to general laws, chapter 30A, paragraph 21A6, to consider purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. I do so declare, and we will not return to open session.
So I did have a conversation with Maureen Creighton earlier today,
Uh-huh.
and suggested that he might be helpful
Yes.
in that conversation. So if you're okay with him attending that executive session, then I would recommend you do that.
Wondered why he was sitting in the corner there.
You have to swear him to secrecy.
Okay, I see smiles and nods, so
Sure.
Maury, please.
Second,
Is there a?
Roll call vote.
What am I voting on?
You're
moving
voting.
to executive session.
Oh, to go, okay, yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Brian, Jess.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Fun.
Uh,
Well, would you like a fun fact before we move into executive session? My daughter just,
Fun facts.
my daughter just texted me